What is good? Back again. A little bit of a hiatus as well.
Slight one. Very slight one.
Oh, but once again, nobody listens anyways, so.
I was going to say there's not too many people missing us.
Yeah. Oh, sure.
2 bros a night.
2, and we got 2 articles. So the first thing that got me really thinking this week was just there's a whole bunch of chatter, especially after the Democrats just won the House, of supporting and building infrastructure again, which Trump campaigned on, obviously, as well. And I read this article on CNN Business, which CNN Business, I don't know if that's sketchy or not. This might have been the first article I've ever read on this site, but whatever. Yeah, basically, article just about how like the CEO that voted for Trump in 2016, who is a CEO of a concrete corporation, is hopeful that this guy voted for Trump, right? This guy that voted for Trump is hopeful that now that Democrats are in the House, that Democrats and Republicans will work together and we'll start actually working on the fact that our infrastructure is wholly fucking just a shit pile.
Yeah.
And basically, it goes on to talk about how this guy's more optimistic now than he would have been with the Republican House, which fascinates me because he voted for Trump. So
I feel like infrastructure is fairly universal, though, policy-wise.
I agree. And
typically
that's where,
bipartisan.
Yeah, and that's where I want to start. So
I think this is what the Democrats should be doing, by the way, now that they have the House. Okay.
So this is what I want to do. I just want to ask you questions, see what you respond, and I'll comment too.
Sure.
If I told you Democrats pass a infrastructure bill, okay, and there's a lot of details as to how you fund that and all these things, but let's say they just passed an infrastructure bill and it went to the Senate and eventually Trump's desk, would it get signed? And if something would get signed by them that Democrats pass, what do you think that would be? Because I don't know that I would agree with that.
So I'm trying to first understand where Trump's going to stand here, because I don't know. I mean, I would assume that if they get good legislation to his desk, he's not going to not sign it just by virtue of it coming from the Democrats. Surely, right? Like he's.
I think that's right.
I think he would. No,
of course you should. No, you shouldn't expect him not to sign something just because it came from a party. No, I don't. That's not what I'm saying. I guess what I'm saying is, especially I think with the last 4 or even 6 years of political history, the idea that somehow they're going to figure out how to work together, even on infrastructure, which you would think is bipartisan, but here's the hiccup, and you can tell me what you think of this. Maybe I'm wrong, but in my mind, here's the hiccup. The hiccup is everybody likes to talk about building infrastructure and getting it better, but you actually have to fucking pay for it, okay? And the problem is you have one party that isn't willing to pay for anything, not a dime. And so my thing is, I'm less worried about the House passing something and Trump signing it. I'm much more worried about the Senate passing a bill that a Democratic House would pass, because the bill's got to start in the House, right? And this is where it starts to get a little nuanced, not too nuanced, because it's not an actual bill, the whole bill I'm talking about, but this is where it starts to get nuanced in private and public funding, right? So some people like 100% public investment in funding. Some people like to hire private companies to do the work. You know, it's there. This is where it starts to get different, and I just, and even more nuanced. It's also getting private funding to build our infrastructure. Some people are, especially people on the right, are fans of that. Yeah, but there are people on the right that are fans of that. And so
Private
this is
funding
what
how
I'm
though?
saying.
Somebody
You've got a
expects
Democratic House that's going to pass a bill that in no way, shape, or form will let private funding own our infrastructure. I think Democrats, that's not what they're about. They would easily say, nope, we're not
Sure.
going to do that. That's ridiculous. Because that's a slippery slope of that's just dumb. Okay. Right. And I can tell you why, but whatever. I don't think Democrats will do that. I think they're going to pass a bill that is more, hey, government owns these roads. We'll maintain them. That's what we should do. That's what the government's here for. And I agree. But if you pass that and it goes to a Republican Senate, I just don't know that it would jive with them. And I don't even know if it would jive with Trump, because Trump, in his first speech after he was elected, it wasn't a State of the Union. It was just like his first speech. He said he wanted a 50-50 bill of public and private investment. And I don't think Democrats would go for that.
He specifically said that?
Correct.
I'll be honest, I'm immediately surprised that he knows that there's a distinction. But
well, it was a speech that he read from a piece of paper, so take that for what you will. But
that's fair. That's fair.
What do you think? Do you think that there's hope that anything the Democrats would pass would be, I don't know. It's ridiculous.
Well, you're absolutely right that this is a sticking point, because it does have to get paid for.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know. To be fair, if the Democrats in the House come up with this awesome infrastructure bill and they send it and it gets turned away, optically that's going to look bad if people are still paying attention.
Right.
So I think the Democrats, their best chance here, try and find a bill that would get through as best as you can and show people that you can actually construct stuff if you want to see a surge in 2020. Because
I agree with you that because infrastructure tends to be more bipartisan, even though we live in this age of divisiveness, but infrastructure it doesn't matter. Like, that's definitely, it behooves the Democrats to pass something to put pressure on the Republican-led Senate and Donald Trump.
Especially because the Republicans have passed nothing, controlling everything. Right.
I agree. And I think that even if Democrats passed 100% public funding and owning of the infrastructure and didn't cave to any demand of private investment and ownership, I think that it would be in their favor if the Republicans didn't pass that. I think even if you went that far with it, if the Republicans just turned it down, then that would look bad on them. Because otherwise, if you don't accept what the House is voting on, you're not going to get anything done, because the House has to vote on anything that you want done too. If you want something else, the House has to vote on it. And then if you want to complain about that, you could have done an infrastructure bill in the last 2 years. You did not. Mm-hmm. And now you're going to, I just feel like I can predict these things. It's going to be, they pass something that they don't like the funding because they raise taxes on wealthy people to pay for it. And they're like, we don't want this. And then they kick it back and say, well, no, we want more private investment. And then Democrats are going to be like, no.
Yeah.
And really quickly before you keep going, in the article itself, the CEO who voted for Trump and is hoping for an infrastructure bill in some way understands the problems with the funding part of it, and he was a fan of a gas tax. And now, as far as the gas tax goes, it's okay, because in the fairest sense of taxing, a gas tax is the more you drive and use the roads, the more you will pay. And I'm a fan of that, right?
Yeah,
what would you
say
reasonable. About that? Yeah, that's pretty reasonable.
Seems reasonable.
The problem with that is we already pay gas taxes. We already pay federal ones and state ones, and maybe some local ones in some areas. I don't know, but we already pay them. Okay. And to add more taxes right now, 11 months after you just on every American, including struggling Americans, after you just cut taxes hardcore for non-struggling Americans, that pisses me off. That makes me upset. I think there's, and you tell me, now we're going to get into politics of this and let me know what you think. I think that there's a window here for the Democrats to run through. Hey, let's roll back 5% of your corporate tax. We're not going to go back to where it was when you cut it, but we're going to go back a little bit to pay for infrastructure and have the public own it and maintain it. What do you think?
Now that will get rejected. But again, it doesn't
by Republicans, yes, but politically and publicly, how do you think that would be received? Publicly more.
Yeah, no, I mean, again,
how would you feel about it? If Democrats came out with that plan, would you be okay with that? Would you be like, fine?
Yeah, I mean, I don't see why not. First of all, we need the infrastructure, and second of all, it's got to get paid for. I mean, I'm not, well, not to get too much into corporate taxes, but I feel like when you're making the biggest amount of gains you've made in our country's history as a corporation,
and you have less tax during it,
and you're paying less workers.
Right.
Well, you're paying workers less, I suppose, and less workers. Automation's
workers too. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm fine with the corporate. I'm fine with corporate tax. I'm fine with higher corporate tax. I'm fine with progressive taxes. So I'm definitely in support of that. It doesn't look good though if Republicans do shut that down.
It doesn't.
If they get something like that and it gets shut down, that looks really bad.
And it doesn't look good for the president, which I don't say often because he's a goddamn superhero and he can. No, I'm serious. Like as a political figure, he a lot of bullets bounce off him that would have murdered so many other politicians. But there's a few things that no matter who you are, even if you're Trump, there's just nothing you can do. If a common sense, reasonable, and paid for infrastructure bill came to your desk and you vetoed that, that would make you look bad. And if the economy fell apart, that would make you look bad. There's probably some more things. I'm not really thinking of everything right now, but those two things for sure. And yeah, I think it's in their best interest to just send something to them and dare them to sign it. And if they don't, yeah,
especially because they had everything and they did a whole lot of nothing. Like if you just start pumping out, this is the Democrats' chance to actually show themselves a bit more as like
as leaders
on behalf of middle America leaders. Absolutely.
I don't have a problem.
Middle class, lower class Americans.
I don't have a problem with them saying that they will investigate and do oversight and subpoena some things that the Trump administration has done. But I want their number one priority to be plan for the future, plan for Americans, do better for workers.
I agree.
They better not take their eye off that. Yeah.
I agree. I really don't want
tax returns and some other things happen along the way. That's fine. But your first priority should be pass these things that every American will benefit from. Even if they don't agree with public funding, infrastructure will be benefited by every single American. So just do those things. So we'll see.
We will see. And I hope they do what they should. And I haven't been paying too much attention, but have there been talks of impeachment or have they actually just been focusing on churning out legislation?
I've not heard much. Finger on the pulse of, at least try to keep my finger on the pulse of both sides a lot.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be honest with you. I just really think that the impeachment talk was a lot of the right before the election trying to make Trump supporters ginned up to vote. Because I haven't heard much about it's like the caravan. I haven't heard shit about it since election. It's been more. I don't know if you've seen Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is already in DC making a splash. Like,
yeah.
Have you seen some of these things like where she's tweeting out policy and she's getting wonky and it's wonderful. I should share articles with you, but.
Well, I saw one where she was
whether
like
you agree or not, she's out
live
there, like, ideas. She's not out there talking about Trump at all. She's out there like, let's do this for workers. What about housing? What it's all that stuff,
Mm-hmm.
So that's good stuff.
Well, we'll see. Let's see if the Democrats can capitalize instead of just shooting themselves in the foot as they usually do.
This leads into the second thing I wanted to talk about a little bit. It was this article I found on Vox, and it was about did you remember this before I sent it to you before the election, Trump was like, oh, we're going to cut taxes for middle class. It's going to be on November 1st. It's going to be great.
Right before the midterms.
Right.
Yeah. No. Yeah. And a journalist called them out on that. And they said, well, we're going to be proposing ideas before the midterms.
So it's just a quick article on Vox about how the middle class tax cuts he was talking about were never going to happen. I don't have too much to say on the article. It just made me think more about how demand does not care about whether things make sense or not. He is just all about how can I win, right? What makes me look good? And that's all I could think about when I was reading this article. I'm just like, oh, everything that comes out of this guy's mouth.
It's
I don't trust that he thinks things through. I only trust that he thinks it benefits him. That's the only thing that he operates on. It's crazy.
These are the times when you know he's shooting from the hip, because nobody had any idea what he was talking about.
Right.
Which is bizarre to me. I mean, he did somebody plant that idea in his head, or does he actually believe that was going to happen, or was he just blatantly lying? It's bizarre, dude.
There were some people that said, and these were kind of some right wingers I read online, that were like, oh, well, after the Republicans passed their tax cut last year and they put expirations on the middle class tax cuts, they were always going to vote to get rid of those delays. And this is what this was. Here's my thing.
Oh,
that's bullshit. That sounds like bullshit to me. If
that
you don't want to have a sunset on taxes,
he threw out a number.
The sunset in the bill. The reason why they put the sunset in the bill of middle class taxes is because they didn't want the number. They didn't. I truly believe that these people aren't stupid, and these people know what they're doing, and they're out to benefit the people they are looking to benefit. And what I mean by that is they know that passing tax cuts for everybody, including wealthy and non-wealthy people, is just going to cost so much money. It's going to make them look bad in the long run. So I truly believe they knew the deficit was going to go up. And so they were doing their best to manage that. And they did it by putting a sunset on middle-class people's taxes because they're scumbags. Don't ask me why they did that, but they did it. So that's just how I feel. But I'm sure people would have things to say about that. And that's fine. I'd listen. But also, I wrote this too when I was reading it. They cut taxes last December, and I still sometimes read about, and Trump talked about cutting middle class taxes. We both just admitted that, like, clearly it was a populist play, political play by him. But if you actually think about what that would affect, why would we cut any taxes right now? You know, the deficit exploded this year, right? Do we know that? Does he know that? I don't know. I'm not sure. And so how can you talk about cutting taxes for anybody when the deficit is going up? And then I wrote this too, and I'll have you respond right after I hear. Where do the tax cuts end? Like, we actually do have to pay for things. Like, how ridiculously low do we want to cut? I feel like some people like literally want no taxes at all. That's it. They just want nothing. And so I want a legitimate, serious, thought-provoking conservative to sit in front of me and answer me, hey, tell me what your plan, what the actual end goal is. Because I'm so tired of just everybody saying we need to cut taxes. That's not actually a plan. Like, we rake people across the coals for not having a plan. But we let people get away with just saying, oh, let's cut taxes because it's populist, without actually saying, okay, well, where does it stop? Where does it stop? 0? That's crazy. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
It was like a mini rant I typed out because I was reading the article, and
I mean, that's fair. Unfortunately, I'm not a conservative, so I can't answer.
No, I know
for you. But you're not wrong. I mean,
yeah.
Cut taxes, sure, but then what? What do you? I mean, that money is now being taken out of the pocket of the federal government. What then?
Right. And by the way, this has a lot to do with the whole Amazon thing recently. So Amazon,
oh my God,
acts like it's gonna pick anywhere. Acted like it was actually gonna do what it should have done. If they actually wanted, if Jeff Bezos and Amazon were full of patriots, they would have picked a small or Midwest city. They would have picked some hard on its luck city to pump jobs and money into, and did the right thing and gave new economic life to a dead city, maybe Detroit or Oklahoma City, or who knows, just any one of these cities that are struggling, that aren't coastal cities. But no, they acted like they were going to go wherever they wanted, and then they just ended up choosing Washington, D.C. and New York City anyways.
Yeah.
Does anybody actually
they chose both.
Does anybody actually think that if they didn't go through that whole process, they were just going to choose that place anyways? But now, because they acted like they were going to, because they pitted our government against each other, they were able to save $2 billion in tax breaks in New York City and Virginia, when otherwise they probably would have been there no matter what. Why are we Why is the United States inside of the United States borders? Why are we stealing jobs from other states and cities and giving tax breaks for that? That's a net loss for the taxpayer. That's a net loss. Like it just you are stealing jobs from another area inside of the same country because and you're doing so by giving them tax breaks. When otherwise they would have paid these like we're losing a lot of money because taxes that would have been paid aren't being paid. And I get that nobody likes taxes. Nobody does. I don't even. But I do understand the purpose of taxes. And I do understand that if I have to pay a certain rate, you better damn well be paying that rate too. And I don't like that you get away with not paying that rate because you brought jobs. No, go fuck yourself. New York City and Arlington, Virginia are going to be just fine without you, Jeff fucking Bezos. Like, does anybody disagree with that? New York City's doing just fine. Arlington, Virginia is doing just fine. Washington, D.C. is doing just fine. Like, the Detroits and the Clevelands are struggling. Go there. It's ludicrous.
It was interesting because I remember Rochester solicited a bid for Amazon HQ.
Go to anywhere but New York City. Going to New York City is such a fucking cop-out. No, they don't need those jobs. And by the way, do they even have room for you? Who the fuck knows? I don't. Did you see that video I posted with me and Tucker Carlson agreeing?
Yeah. And him agreeing with Ocasio-Cortez as well.
We all agree there.
No, she's absolutely right. I mean, billions of dollars in corporate welfare to a company that's making incredible amounts of money.
Right.
And putting jobs exactly where jobs aren't so badly needed. Especially, what pisses me off the most is they split the HQ. So now they get to take advantage of these weird tax cuts in two different states. Like, it wasn't the idea that it was going to be one major center, not two different places that they were going to be? Like, surely New York City and Arlington are feeling some type of way because they're not getting all the jobs that they were anticipating.
Yeah, I don't know.
Especially with so much money going to them. Like, come on.
And I watched this video the other day. It was this guy it was a reporter that's been covering this kind of stuff for a long time. And he was just like, I think he said a study that he did along with the university, it was like $70 to $90 billion we're losing out on income we would have had if we didn't compete against each other in our country. Like, come on, what the hell? Jesus. So dumb.
Yeah, that's interesting. I've actually never thought about it that way because each state's going to look out for themselves. Hell, each area.
And he said in the video, he's like, it says it's literally in the Constitution that the federal government can regulate interstate commerce. So the federal government can step in constitutionally and say, this is dumb. We're not going to do this anymore. And they should.
Yeah, but that's anti-business.
Oh, my God. Can we just use common sense? Can we just use common sense? Come on.
Well, if we could do that, then there would be no problems, Cyril.
Yeah, if I had a nickel for every time, we should have used common sense.
You'd have a lot of nickels.
I'd have 15 nickels. It's crazy.
Exactly 15.
All right.
All right.
That's where we'll cut it. That's about it.